And I think that you just want to make sure that for the most part, your marketing, your messaging, your branding, and your process mostly at the store is consistent with everything else. Like don't let it be slippery towards you, not slippery away.
This is the Strategy with Jason podcast with your host, Jason Harris.
Tim, thank you so much for taking the time to come jam with me today.
My pleasure.
You couldn't have picked a cooler place to do it. Like really, we walked in, I was like, hey, this is gonna be a fun place to shoot a podcast. So for everybody out there that don't necessarily know who you are, Tim, and kind of how you got kind of started in the industry, if you can kind of set up for us kind of what's that origin story that is Tim Felsky?
Yeah, absolutely. I grew up an hour from here where we are recording in Sarnia, Ontario, and studied English and French in high school, which allowed me to fast track through high school pretty quickly, and came away to school here in London at Western University. And I figured that I wanted to get into the car business somehow, but I didn't really understand how that was going to happen. So studied politics with the goal of getting into business, and I even took first year German because I thought that would be important somehow to work for Porsche or BMW down the road, maybe in Germany. Cool. Yeah, well, fast forward, that's my first week of school, September 11th, 2001.
Oh
and then
my gosh.
The politics books are sort of thrown out the window with how we're going to treat our partners in the world and things like that. So it was an interesting time at university. I went away when I was 17, where most kids were going away at 18 and 19. So I was not really ready for school, but I finished my schooling, fortunately, and graduated when I was 20 with a bachelor's and went away right away to work for Enterprise Rent-A-Car, which is, if you're looking, a great way to get into the car business because it really teaches you the value of hard work, and you get to work around cars. And then if you're afraid of retail auto because it's a commission-only sort of gig, you get a great salary with one of the largest privately held companies in the world. So I really valued my time at Enterprise, and then sort of realized after 3 years and progressing to be a branch manager pretty quickly that I was probably going to be a branch manager and get my tie caught in the vacuum for a couple more years before the next opportunity came up. So from there, I had met a local dealer. We were doing service loaner cars for them at Enterprise, and that's my current employer, except there was a bit of a circuitous route to get back to him. He hired me on with no retail selling experience as an assistant sales manager in the summer of 2007.
Wow, that's pretty bold. That's cool.
And I thought, okay, this will be great. I'm not so worried about commission. We'll figure it out. And 2 months later, it was not the right fit, and I didn't know what I was doing, and I didn't know what it took to get a car sold.
Gotcha.
And so we parted ways, and I thought, oh no, what am I going to do now? I'm going to drive from my last day to an interview at what we consider, I don't know if we use the phrase, or if you use the phrase, the Taj Mahal dealership, the brand new palace that had just been built on South Warncliffe Road here, Lexus of London. And I went from my last day to my interview, and I didn't get hired in the interview, but it was pretty quick after, with a guy that was from our hometown and that I remembered test driving a car with years before. So it was sort of,
cool.
It was sort of a who you know, it was also what you know. And had a great career there for 5 years, starting in sales and learning the ropes from a great training perspective from Lexus and their luxury division of Toyota, and also from the size of the dealer group. It's an ISO registered company, and they do a really great job onboarding their staff and that sort of thing, where it's a big criticism of a lot of smaller stores where
it's a good point. It's true. A lot of stores are like, here's the keys, here's the brochures, go figure it out.
Here's the new cars, here's the used cars, we'll see you at lunch. So that was going really well, from product advisor to used car manager to internet sales manager. We developed their department for the first time to the point where it needed to be turned into a BDC. They developed the BDC for their group, and then in 2012 parted ways for me to go do my own digital marketing for a couple of years before coming back to the car business. And having taken a couple of years off, sort of start again at the bottom, 18 months selling some Hondas for the local guys in town before reaching back out to the guy who fired me probably 10 years before to turn into a very valued member of their used car team for Fenwick Motors.
It's a great kind of roundabout way, but it's actually really well rounded as far as the experience you had in the industry. And I agree with you. Working at Enterprise is actually a great place. Their training program is phenomenal. Their processes are very clean and well developed, you know, and that's probably a great place to start. You know, I was actually talking to a dealership prior to coming here, and we were talking a little bit about the interview process, and the gentleman made this comment. He goes, yeah, but I get all these people that are applying for this job that used to work at McDonald's. And like, he's kind of like, and I'm like, whoa,
Yeah.
like, stop right there. Like, you need to look at these people.
Yeah.
I mean, the sheer amount of process that is required and that needs to be retained and then executed in a place like that. It's similar to enterprise. It's done the same way every single enterprise out there. It's one of their foundational things. It's incredibly important to learn. A lot of people don't ever get a chance to learn that. So that's cool. And then you can add some roundabout ways to get there.
yeah.
You had a few years in some marketing, so which is cool because that gives you the other side of the coin. You know, not just what you do when they come into the dealership, but also how we acquire them and their attention and then getting them into the dealership. You know, that's got to help in now being in the used cars and responding to these inquiries when people have. I mean, you kind of know, you get this feeling of what they're having to go through before they're, you know, making that phone call or before they're submitting that lead.
Yeah, I think a lot of dealers don't, or young salespeople especially, don't realize that the minute they make the lead is just one more point on the shopper's buying process, even though it's the start of your sales process. So, you know, they've done hours and hours of research, they've invested a lot of time and attention into it, and then you try and sort of, as soon as they send in a lead, clobber them over the head with what you want to do. You know, that
and that's so key. It's that's our first approach.
Yeah.
The majority. It's just like what I want to do. You know what the thing I've always taught, I've said this a few times. I know people are listening to this going, okay, Jason, you harp on this a lot. I don't know where we get off calling them leads. So I've been in the automotive industry long enough to remember that the first set of websites that we created for dealerships didn't have a form capture. And a lot of it just was the call to action, right? And then we came up with the form fill. Which at that point in time, when they showed up on reports, they were listed as inquiries. That's what it was. It was an inquiry.
Right.
Which, if you think about it, that's exactly what it is. And then at some point in time, I don't know when, and I'm pretty sure agencies are probably the ones that fucked it all up. And coming from an agency, I think it's pretty funny, but it is. We probably screwed it up. We started titling them as leads. But they're not. They're just someone simply asking a freaking question. Now, through communication, I think we can turn them into a lead.
Right. I think it fits the salesperson mindset. You know, what else could it be called? But I think inquiries are certainly a fair interpretation. It's definitely the case where, say, 10% of them are genuinely hot leads, and it's tough to know because that might come in from a trade-in, that might come in from a credit app, or the credit app could be, I think I have bad credit and I want to get that out of the way, but I'm not buying for 6 months. You know, like, who knows? But I, from my perspective, and having been in a couple of stores for the last decade or so, I don't see anyone doing email follow-up super good to the point. And everybody gets too much spam email, right? You get ongoing emails from everybody, but with a mile wide and inch deep approach that most salespeople in internet marketing departments get, like if there's 6 levels of command, how are you going to get something new out there into the marketplace when you're already busy? We're just missing the boat. And I think that's why agencies in automotive are doing so well, because there's so much food to eat. Like dealers don't want to do it, aren't doing it. Salespeople aren't savvy enough. They don't know how to work with the technology. Fundamental literacy for coding is low. You know, there's great opportunity still for agencies that are solving genuine problems for dealers. And I view one of those big ones as email automation and sort of drip marketing for auto, because I've myself put in inquiries for a number of cars, whether it's mystery shopping or cars for myself over the years, and I can't think of any of those dealers that have emailed me lately, to say,
oh no,
hey.
Our usage of systems, and like you said earlier, we're talking off camera here, we're talking a little bit about technology. Our usage of technology is shite. It really is, right? I mean, also I think too is that for me in my head, the way I look at it, like there's 2 different levels of tech. There are some dealerships out there that are using CRMs. They go, no, we're good. We have a CRM. But that's entirely different than lead management. And, I really tell dealerships that you should really kind of look at 2 different pieces of technology, because the way that they're designed is entirely different. CRMs, like, guys, it's literally in the name of the product. It's a customer relationship management tool. For them, they have to have a transaction with you first for them to become a customer. So they're not customers at the point when they send an inquiry or lead. You know what I mean?
Right,
It's like a lead management tool is entirely different. It's designed to nurture the engagement and conversation, all right, to the point where we can generate the next step, either another level of communications or a physical, level of communication. But then once a transaction happens, then they become a customer. And how do we manage the relationship of our customers over the 5 to 7 years that they're going to be owning the car, right? Or in your case, with used 4 to 5.
Right. And if you have a salesperson turnover of like 1 every 8 months, then in a 7-year period, they're going to have on the order of 9 people assigned to that file. So there's definitely a lot of challenges still for automotive. But I really, and I'm not going to turn this into a bash the vendor call.
No, you can. No, because I'm all for that. I think vendors, and I fall into the category, right?
Right.
Is that we have to be held more responsible, right? The value that we provide to our users needs to be more than just the product or service that we sell.
Right.
And a tool is only as good as how someone utilizes it. If you're working for a vendor that's one of those tool providers, you need to service the living shit out of it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, we use 180 as our CRM,
which is a good system.
It's just not a terrible system, but there's a lot to be left desired. Well,
that's what I find though with most systems, is that there's no perfect one out there. But what I find is that it's the implementation of the system.
Yeah.
So I find there's 2 parts to it. There's the support and training and development and coaching on the system is one part. There's usually always ends up missing. But then there's also the actual utilization of the tool itself.
Yes.
So it's the dealerships not defining a process on how to utilize the tech.
Yeah.
They're expecting the tech to
solve
solve the
problem.
problem. Like I use the term a lot. It's that quick diet pill.
Yeah.
Like I'm just gonna take a diet. I'm
Great
just
for 10 days.
Yeah, I'm gonna sign up for this. It's gonna fix my operational problems.
Yeah. No, and definitely the process and the people involved as well. But I have a lot of. It's strange that once you get the cost of the additional implementation of technology to pretty much zero, you got to spin up another server for your customer and charge them for another license, and that the marketing is done to sell these licenses basically to use the technology. It doesn't make me so happy when, whether you call, I don't need to distinguish in my mind between a lead management system and a CRM. I just need it to have 2 levels and do both. It would
be nice if there was. I agree with you.
Yeah.
And
it can be the same
thing.
thing.
Some try to. The only thing I ever look at is I always kind of tell dealerships that you don't necessarily want a product to be jack of all trades and masters of nothing. So having a product that is a master in one place or in one position of it, it's like I don't know. Do you guys use rapid response?
Yes. Yeah.
Right. It's not the end all be all the entire process.
Yeah.
But it is a master of a very specific process.
Right.
And Will Harris, the new head of sales, is listening to this, and he's pretty much going, yes. But it's a master of that one particular part of that process. But I agree with you. There's not one system out there that kind of fulfills the whole thing. But I think if the dealership spends the time to define what process they want, then they can go shopping for the tech, and then they can find what's appropriate for them.
Yeah, I feel that, if I could just spin up 2 instances, say, of the CRM, and, it shouldn't be any incremental cost to the vendor. Am I getting incremental value? Sure. But if I feel the need to do that, it sort of represents the lack of foresight on your product development team. Like, really get into the weeds here with individual features and that sort of thing on a specific software. But, Constant Contact or MailerLite or MailChimp, or they all do that piece really, really well. None of them integrate with 180. Like, it's not like that open source environment. And one of the things that's going on in the industry that I'm really excited about right now is sort of AutoTrader Canada's partnership with Convertis, or buying out Convertis and switching a lot of dealers to WordPress sites. Because I view that WordPress platform as having so much opportunity for dealers and agencies to develop new widgets that are going to work in an open source way to talk to our data, convert other vendors' data into something more valuable.
We see that now, right?
Yeah.
There are a handful of guys right now like Strathcom and eDealer and Dealer Inspire, you know, and we work with a lot of them. And the cool thing with us is that we're not a website provider, we're a content developer.
Right.
So, you know, it's like we're kind of like everybody's friend and no one's enemy because we don't play in their space.
You make art.
Yeah, exactly. Like we take that framework of a house and fill it, you know, with the dealerships or the client's personal touch and feel and approach, and you know, and really kind of differentiate them from, you know, from others. So and one time it's exciting to see some of these guys use more of an open source format, but then even though the original coding is open source, that doesn't necessarily mean that the vendor becomes very open source.
Right.
Just among the 3 companies I listed, right, we work in all 3. Right, they're very different levels of access that we actually get to the systems. But at the end of the day, the systems are great. But what the data, the systems, the type of data the systems are collecting, what we're doing with that's actually sometimes a little more concerning, you know, about what some of these companies are doing. You know, I hate to say it, but I'm not a fan of AutoTrader's data agreements in pretty much any way or form, because for the most part they pretty much say they own the IP. Now I'm probably gonna get some comments going, well, we don't actually say that. Well, okay. Well, it's not so many words. You're very much saying that we own it, right?
Yeah. Well, even just, you know, the treatment of car gurus coming into Canada, and you know, and as they were sort of scooping the photos that you would think that the dealer owns. I mean, it's photos of their inventory.
You would think they paid for it, right?
They paid for it, certainly that too. But you know, with AutoTrader objecting to that and suing car gurus, and I think they've settled finally. And now, anytime you want to send a data feed, you've got to make a signature. You've got to sign to say that you own the photos that you're sending, so that this isn't a further issue. But yeah, the data is a big deal, and you know, there's a lot of global trends, whether it's GDPR in Europe or PIPEDA here in Canada, that people have some reasonable expectation of privacy, and the line's being pressed and being pushed. But that's is a good segue that you brought that up to the work that I'm doing. I'm just finishing up a master's degree in digital currency in particular, and you may think, well, Tim, what does Bitcoin have to do with buying and selling?
There's actually a lot of similarities here.
Buying and selling cars here. Yeah. So I did my thesis project on a technology called Open Bazaar, and it is like a decentralized Kijiji or Amazon or eBay or whatever sort of platform you want to think about, with a huge focus on privacy. So to get it out of the way, yes, you can buy drugs on it, like the Silk Road, and no, there's nothing we can do about it. And you know, it's sort of like a combination of BitTorrent and Kijiji or Marketplace or, you know, Craigslist or something like that. And as of right now, it's getting very little use, and almost no one wants to be on it. And it's, you know, it's clunky and it's heavy. You've got to download a thing to use it, but it works. And that sort of proof of concept and innovation in the marketplace is really interesting to me, because, you know, if you're a Canadian dealer and you have a very positive view about AutoTrader's billing practices, I'd love to hear from you. But the Open Bazaar protocol.
You know what's going to happen during this podcast, by the way?
What's that?
Every time we say the word AutoTrader, it's going to have to be a beep.
And that's fine.
Like, everyone's going to be saying what 4-letter word we're using.
And they won't even need to guess at who we're talking about, because it'll be so clear.
No, but it's true. I mean, you know, when big companies like that try to own, the IP of your data, how they thought they were going to do that and not get shit for it is actually kind of beyond me. You know, I mean,
I think it was
there's so many benefits of decentralizing the whole bit. It now becomes open market, and what we do with the data and how we utilize that, both our marketing efforts, but also just in working with other companies and other vendors. It's just it's an open floor at that point.
Well, I think it was probably a mistaken plan 10 or 15 years ago to say, yeah, it looks like we're going to be able to own all this data, and the internet will progress so slowly, and it'll only be on your desktop, and no one will really mind, right? And then now everyone's carrying around a supercomputer in their pocket, or 2 of them, you know, or whatever it is, or or every piece of technology that you own has a supercomputer built in, you know, whether it's the GoPro's recording or otherwise. So, you know, the data's blown up and everyone's trying to see what is valuable about it.
And everyone's trying to take ownership. That's the kicker.
Yeah.
Like everybody's trying to take ownership.
And I think that to a certain extent they do have a claim to the data that people provide on their platforms. However, you know, with a 10-page of legalese, terms and conditions, you know, when they did that sort of study that if you added up all the terms and conditions for every service you subscribe to, you'd never be able to read it. You know, in one person's lifetime type of thing. That's probably an exaggeration too, but you know, but where it kind of blends or blurs the line, it's, you know, if you're a seller on Amazon, and there's a lot of young entrepreneurs that think that, you know, buying and reselling on Amazon is a great way to, you know, get your foot in the door of making some money. And then you find a good product, and then Amazon knows that it's a good product, and they probably know that the margin is what it is, and then they make their own Amazon Basics brand version of it. And you can even get Amazon Basics motor oil, synthetic motor oil now.
I ordered a set of Amazon Basic headphones the other day. They're freaking great.
And they're half decent,
They
yeah.
were really, for $20.
Yeah.
All right. I just needed some quick, and they were actually, I'm thoroughly impressed and happy with the purchase.
Sure. And so there's definitely ways that you could crawl the internet and figure out what seems to be selling based on other various indices. But Amazon knows what's selling, you know.
They have all the data there.
All the data.
I think what it is, but it's true, because what we're getting to is the responsibility of this data. Whose responsibility is the dealer's responsibility to hold the vendors, you know, liable for what they do with the data? Is it? I mean, I think it's the dealer's responsibility to at least know what the hell these vendors are actually doing with the data, because I don't think they even know that.
No, I'm sure it's not clear, and I'm sure they wouldn't want you to know. I don't think they're going to be advertising exactly what's going on. I mean, there were issues with TrueCar, right? You know, you upload your entire transaction to them so that they know what cars should sell for, sort of thing. It's really, really tricky. It's not something I've even dug into on that level, but you know, just the stuff on the surface with the marketplace. If you can obfuscate who's shopping, how much they're shopping, when they're shopping, and what they're buying, I think that's a big first step that the technology like OpenBazaar provides. And so the focus of my research was on how do we make that work for cars? Because cars are one of those things where people said I would never buy one online, just like they said they never buy shoes online because you can't tell if they fit, or pants for the same reason. But I
literally did today, by the way.
Yeah.
I actually just bought a pair. I was actually at a lunch with some friends.
Yeah.
And I wear orange shoes.
Yeah.
And it's not overly easy to find orange shoes.
Sure.
So he's sitting there, he's like showing me this link, and it's for a set of like orange Nike high tops.
Nice.
And I literally just grabbed his phone and just like I copied the link, I sent it to mine. And I literally during lunch just finished
buy now.
Yeah, it's mine. Yeah, it's on its way.
Yeah. So, you know, that sort of thing. I lost my train of thought. I don't know where we're going with that.
But no, I think what it is okay. So let's I'm going to assume that you guys don't use AutoTrader.
We do use AutoTrader.
Do you use AutoTrader?
Oh yeah,
Okay,
and that's the other thing is that I'm a big proponent of training my staff to be business people before they're salespeople.
Yep.
Like you need to understand something like return on investment and you know, basically that, you know, and absolutely is it a very expensive lead service or a very expensive website service? Absolutely, but the cost to change is significant in lost time, productivity, stress, and so on, and it still returns. So I'm not going to close the door on a 20-year partner that still returns.
Yeah, I know, and I agree with you. I think regardless of what maybe some of their policies are that we don't necessarily agree with, you know, at the end of the day, if the return on investment is still there, then it's there. Let's continue to do business, right? You know, but I think what it is for a lot of dealerships is how they even define what that return on their investment even looks like.
Yeah.
Because the vendor's not doing a great job of showing. They're just like, well, we're AutoTrader. You know, really? You know, this is like, you know, and it's also, it's like, I mean, you do kind of need someone in place to really kind of decipher through the authenticity and then the BS. I mean, you know, every vendor out there, like we can talk about attribution, you know, I mean, every vendor out there wants to take credit for, you know, someone making that phone call or someone making that lead, but, you know, there was a lot of things that actually supported that. I mean, it could have been something from something they saw in a movie. So there's so many product
Sure,
placements
sure.
anymore, or something they saw through their social feeds, or even just Jim in the cubicle next door, whose brother just got a Subaru, and he said
Overheard
something
a phone
positive.
call.
Like,
Yeah.
it's just, there's so much get put into that.
Yeah, and I think that you just want to make sure that for the most part, your marketing, your messaging, your branding, and your process mostly at the store is consistent with everything else. Like, don't let it be slippery towards you, not slippery away.
That's a good
You
point.
know, you're not going to win every one. The product has to work for the customer, and if they don't know, they need to find a way to find out as quickly as they can. And don't get in their way.
Yeah.
The fastest car deal I ever did was a guy driving by the parking lot. I went out and said, "Hey, can I help you?" He asked how much the 2013 Elantra was, with taxes all in out the door. And I think it was a $9,800 car, and I did the math on my calculator. It was 11,100. And he said, "Okay, I'm going to get a check."
Did you accidentally summon me?
Yes.
Apparently I did accidentally summon you. So yeah, I mean, there's no need to hide the price from the customer. The car costs what it costs. If your condition of the vehicle is good and the price is reasonable, you may get a chance to get the deal. And then everything else is where the professional salesperson comes in to decipher the BS.
100%. And that's true no matter which department you're in. New car, used car. It's the exact same thing. It's just, I've been in the car business long enough to understand that at one point we were the ones who controlled the information.
Right.
We did, and we legitimately did, and there was benefits in that, and there were lots of not benefits in that, whatever the opposite of a benefit is, in being able to control that. But that's not the case anymore. So, that's the first thing we have to acknowledge, that the customer is really in the driver's seat here, and we don't necessarily have to take control, but we do have to support the drive, to the destination of purchasing the vehicle.
Absolutely.
Now, we kind of talked a little bit off camera about kind of, who we wanted to kind of target, this chat towards and stuff like that. And you kind of mentioned internet managers.
Yep.
And what else was the other one?
Used car managers.
Used car managers.
Yes.
So we'll kind of go that direction. The industry's changed so much.
Yes.
I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
Between marketing opportunities and social networks and vendors and technology and how we use data out there, how we collect our own data, how we create data. There's just so many things have changed out there. What would be a few pieces of advice you'd want to share with internet managers and used car managers out there?
I mean, judging from my career trajectory and how I feel about my life today, say 15 years on in the car business and only 35 years old, it's so, like, you can't, what do they say? Treatment without diagnosis is malpractice.
That's actually a good point.
I don't know where you are in your career, your sales path, your salespersonship, whatever it is, your life. All I can say is get a little better today and try and get a little better tomorrow, and pay attention to that sort of thing. And whatever that means to you, and people find it pretty hokey, especially when they're in a crummy place in their lives, like to think about guys like Tony Robbins or Jim Rohn or whoever the talking head is that you like or can receive some information from, where it's not your dad or your mom telling you what to do, and maybe it's not the reverend at your church telling you what to do, or some position of authority, but that has no relationship. It doesn't matter. Get some advice. Get on a path to being better than what you are, because no one is perfect. And even Tiger Woods hits 100 balls every day before he wins the Masters after 6
That's
years
such a good
away.
point. I mean, isn't it amazing?
Whatever.
How many people said he was done?
Done. Yeah.
Like, done. His career's over with. He's not, and he ignored it.
Yeah.
And just
Put his
kept
head down.
going
Get
and
back
kept
to work.
going and kept going and kept going. But
Yeah.
I agree with you that we need to be, I like to use the word intentional
Yes.
about our growth.
Yes.
And I find to be intentional, the key to be intentional with your personal growth and business growth is that you actually have to plan it out.
Yes.
You can't just assume you're going to grow through experience, or just assume that these educational opportunities are going to come about.
Yeah.
You have to seek them out.
Yeah. I definitely agree. And I guess taking advantage of opportunities that are in the community. If you're in automotive, of course, that's I think the audience for your podcast. But we met at ARC, at Automotive Remarketing Conference Canada. We met through a mutual industry colleague.
Yeah.
So if I didn't know her and she didn't know you, and if none of the three of us were there, we wouldn't have met. But at the same time, like I drove from a dealership 3 hours away to go to this conference, and I had to ask my owner for the day off, and I had to ask him to pay what I think turned out to be $400 for one night hotel.
Yeah, it wasn't cheap.
It wasn't cheap. To gain this experience and miss 2 days of commission sales. Like, well, it's a trade-off and it's an investment, but at some point, like I was there and you weren't.
Yep.
So what do you think I learned that might help me sell one more car this year? Well, 10 things or 100 things, that type of thing. So definitely get out in your community, whether that's, I don't think that the salesperson community, there's a lot of lone wolves in the industry. They're not they're not all meeting up for beers at the local.
I wish they were doing more of it. In fact, I've tried to. I put on.
Oh, and you're doing
club.
yeah.
Like I try.
Sure.
I really do. I try.
No one is trying harder than you.
But it's tough. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm literally laying it out there. I'm like, just come jam with us.
Yeah.
Let's create a community but you'd be amazed. It's just.
I think it's tough when your entire job is meeting new people every day and sort of adapting yourself to what they need at the time.
Yeah.
The last thing you want to do after hours is to go do more of that a lot of the time. Now, if you're not a natural connector, that's okay. But you might consider what are some things that you can do to be a little more connected. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube.
Yeah, there's some great groups out there. I mean, traveling and getting face-to-face with people, I love. I mean,
Yeah.
hence the reason why we drove the 2 hours this morning, to come and meet with a few others and meet with yourself, it's just because I just love being face-to-face with you. But you're right, there's tons of opportunities there. There are great podcasts, there are great video series, there's
Yeah.
great social groups that you can be a part of. But I think you just have to be intentional in your growth to do so. And if that means that, I'm a big fan of scheduling out, very specific time. If that means you got to schedule out 40 minutes, once a week to just be a part of this social group,
Yeah.
so that you can just kind of consume and just expand on your knowledge, then you got to be intentful about it. Otherwise, you'll never do it.
Yeah. And start with the things you're interested in personally. Like I grew up around computers, so I didn't have to adapt to the new industry of computers being, in the dealership. In 2011, I bought my first DSLR camera and just started, I'd always been interested in photography, but to break off the better part of $1,000 or more to get into DSLR photography, it's sometimes harder to wrap your head around why you're going to do that. But I did it, and I've really grown as a photographer, let's say.
Yeah.
And, as something as silly as I do 50 photos of every used car we sell, and I can do them in about a minute. And other dealers are waiting for the 4 days to come by and losing 4 days of velocity on their used car. Like, people are buying cars every day. If you have something, they might buy yours today if only they knew it was for sale.
It's happened. I can't tell you how many used cars.
Absolutely.
Look, I posted, and I'm like, I'm not even halfway done posting all of the images, and I got like, where are you seeing this?
Yeah.
Like, it's online right now? Okay, I didn't even know it updated. Yeah, it's like, it's just, but you're right. I mean, but that's making a commitment to your craft and being a professional about it. And as much as I have so many sales managers out there and internet managers and used car managers that are great, dear friends of mine, there's a good majority of them out there that just never made a commitment to actually their profession.
Yeah. Yeah, you got to get serious. Like it's tough to look at the numbers, but if you're one check away from bankruptcy in your personal life, your business probably isn't what you're focused on in the right sense. Like getting a mastery of the numbers, I talked about just return on investment or turning people into business people first. Like you got to take care of the money. Like your dealer is there with the money, and you want some of that money. And the way to get it is not just by showing up and working 40 hours and doing as little work as you can. Like it's just not gonna do it. But I was so fortunate to have the training through Enterprise, and then even when I was at Lexus, I became the Kaizen rep for the dealership, which is continuous improvement in Japanese. So you don't get 1,000% better overnight, but if you get 1% better every day, you're kind of going that way. But yeah, you just have to give it your all. And again, the financials, like if a dealer, when you find out or eventually may get exposure to a dealer's financial statement, and you divide the marketing budget into the units retailed, and you end up with somewhere between $200 and $600 per car is getting spent or something like that, you might take every opportunity a little more seriously that you get to sell a car.
Well, and that's a great segue, because it's actually, one of the things that I've actually put a fair amount of content out there about is getting used car managers to kind of really understand that they're landlords first before they're car people. And it's like, we literally have to look at their used car lot as just a good game of Monopoly.
Yeah.
And every one of these pieces of property have a valuation on it, and it's how you're moving, your pieces across the board, and how you're developing value on each one of those little spots make a significant difference. What's funny is I was even, I don't recommend this to most people, but I was even into it as far as actually numbered my spaces on my lot.
Yes.
It would actually track analytics based on profitability on location.
Of each parking spot.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, I'm not saying everybody needs to be, weird and crazy, kind of like how I was. But if I actually wanted to see what my return was, from a real estate investment perspective on every single piece of
You reached
spots.
a point where you had every other number you thought you could get, and then you thought of a new number.
I just made it up.
And so you did it, and that's what you need to do. And again, a lot of it, I always think, I don't know why in my head, like a random orbit sander or like a dual action polisher, which is that as long as you're not going over the same thing over and over and over and over again, other than like say core processes, but like there's room to be like, okay, like let's look at this month, and then let's look at this month, because eventually through the process of discovery, you're going to find out a lot of new stuff.
Yeah.
And your orbit will actually get bigger as you go back over it. Now, again, if you're a factory worker, that's not the role you're here. You're here stamping plates.
But unfortunately in the car business, a lot of people treat their job like that.
Yeah, and I think they're missing out. They're not having any fun, probably. But you need, not only does it break up the monotony, but you take in some car on trade that you're like, this doesn't really fit. What can we do with it? And then, it ends up being like a Jeep Wrangler, and you don't even like Chryslers for whatever reason, and it sells in one day, because little did you know, Jeep Wranglers are like the hottest used car on the market. Yeah. Or something to that effect. And not only does it gross, but there's a business office and so on and so forth. So
there's so much data within it, and we were kind of getting to this. I mean, just kind of to do a quick recap, we've talked about your process and how that intertwines into your technology, and how you really kind of create the process and let the tech kind of support the process. Don't let the tech dictate the process. Let the tech support the process. Yeah. And then internet managers, sales managers, or kind of anybody in general out there, commit to your craft and be intentful about how you educate yourself and really dive into this. And now kind of this third one, this next one we're talking about, which I think is so great, is just a used car manager and the analytics that are available to them. That, we talked about this a little off camera, at one point in time, a used car manager's worth was once measured by the depth of their Rolodex.
Yes.
And that's not the case anymore. We're measured by how we process the data and what data we're looking at. Yeah. You being the used car manager, what are you looking at today that may be different than what you were looking at 5 years ago? It's
funny, like I have I don't know what you use to manage your passwords if you work in a dealership now, because I think I have 30 logins alone. And so you think, well, how did we do any of this before computers? And you kind of realize you didn't do any of this. Like you didn't consider all the data that was there. One little thing which is interesting that has integrated into their new backend was that if you just divide SRPs into, what am I doing? SRPs into page views into SRPs, search results pages. You can kind of see what kind of click-through you get, like super basic metric.
Yeah, it's engagement metric, which they used to do manually for a long time. Now they actually
exactly. So something like that now is available to everybody. You don't have to know it's a thing and then make it yourself. It's just provided to you.
But what do you do with that data? That's a kicker. So the data's there.
Right.
How do you utilize it?
So
everyone's a little different.
Step one, you have an awareness of it. Step two, you actually get it and look at it. Step three, you make pricing changes based on engagement. Step 4, you measure the engagement against your pricing strategy to then see what is reasonable to do.
Yep.
You know, if you have a hot car that isn't sold, it might be the car, and then you need to go look at it and test drive it and make sure it doesn't smell funny and see how many people quoted on it and kind of dig in that way. You know, all cars, especially unused, all cars are different.
Yeah.
So you need to go know exactly what that car is from a sophisticated buyer's eye. Because, of course, most buyers aren't sophisticated, but you want to be able to sell the ones that are.
Yep.
And, you know, if I imagine you may be an analytical type person, and I am certainly.
Oh, no, we're totally like that.
And we're like 10% of the market.
Yeah.
But it allows us to see what everyone else might see.
Yeah, you know what, a geeky one that I used to really dive into?
What?
I actually knew the amount of inventory views,
Yeah.
all right, per unit sold. And actually...
On average.
On average.
Ah.
So I would, when any of my, and this was across multiple platforms, right? So I would include things like AutoTrader, Kijiji, my own website.
Yeah.
I would count views, VDP views
Sure.
on all of those platforms, all right? And then start measuring that on time to sell.
Yes.
And then if something was out of whack, meaning X didn't meet Y,
Yeah.
all right, literally a red flag would throw up. And I would just be like, what's up? Mm-hmm. The views are there, but the time has lapsed.
Yes.
Is it, then I would just, it's a simple question of just go, well, why? That's
Yeah.
all it was. It was
Yeah.
just one of those pieces of analytics that I collected and I would create in a simple Excel format. Like I said, I'm geeky that way.
Sure.
But then it would just say, okay, well, I've hit this threshold. I've hit this time that usually takes for frequency to create within the marketplace.
Yeah.
Okay, why has the unit not been sold? And sometimes I deep dive into it, look at the comments, or maybe deep dive into the price.
Yeah.
Or in one case, the pictures. And I went into, and it was just because, you know, so many things going on.
Right.
The interior pictures looked like shit.
Yeah.
It was actually a coffee cup sitting on the
In the-
floor.
yeah.
And when they turned it on, they just turned, you know, the ignition got turned on,
Yeah.
but not all the way.
So it looked like all the
there
lights
was
were on.
lights all over the dash on.
Yeah.
So I'm like,
Christmas tree.
funny thing, I
Yeah.
would change those handful of things, and sure enough, within the same time frame, bam, it was
It was
good
sold
to go.
again.
Yeah.
And you know, it's not. Sometimes the answer is because it hasn't sold yet is the only reason it hasn't sold.
Sometimes it's the case,
And
but not always.
it's funny to see Dale Pollock's newest sort of marketing initiatives behind V Auto and Velocity as a principle for automotive.
I love the concepts. A lot of methodologies. I love the way their approach
Yeah.
to data. Don't agree with some of them, but I do like them.
But you know, his new thing is, well, velocity isn't everything. Why would you wholesale a perfectly good piece of inventory just because it hasn't sold between 60 and 90 days or whatever the criteria is? And you look at the strength of the used car market right now, prices that people are paying at auction. You
Yeah, don't get me started on that.
cannot give away inventory. Now, this is not forever.
Because you can't get it in the first place.
You can't get it in the first place. So, you know, you'd almost never wholesale a car. Take a retail loss on a car before you wholesale it for a loss, because at least you may generate a service customer and that sort of thing.
That might generate something at the back end. Services.
Anything.
That's one thing. I've talked about this before, but you know, in the dealership, how we create these silos, right? It's
Yeah.
like used car manager, new car manager, parts and service, and they're all running independent businesses of each other, and they don't really ever cross over. In some, it's like the used car manager hates a service manager,
Right.
You know, because the service manager gouges him on everything.
Yeah.
The service manager hates the used car manager because he's a cheap bastard.
Yeah.
You know, and he doesn't want to pay for any of the reconditioning. And
Sure.
it's just like and all of it doesn't support the dealership's overall goals and objectives.
Right.
You know,
I had this crazy idea a couple of years ago, and it is probably still too crazy, but
I like crazy ideas, share.
Yeah, that there is no job role. Just everyone has access to the service calendar to make a booking, and everyone has access to the order system to buy a car, or to, you know, to buy. And then you're automotive professionals. And if you meet some old lady who's there to get a tire plugged, you talk to her.
Yeah.
You find out like what's she up to? Why is she here? Like, who is she? What is she like? And then you can find out that she doesn't like her car, but she's in to get her tire patched. Then you can sell her a car too.
I still think it can be done. In fact, actually, I encourage a lot of people to kind of head that direction.
Yeah.
You know,
One-stop shop.
Just before I kind of backed out of the dealerships, it was the direction we were heading in, and we just started developing out salespeople that were also service advisors. So we're
Right.
actually cross-training them.
Yes.
Because what it is that individual became your car person.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, your car gal or car guy, whatever
Yeah.
it was. But it was no matter what the car needs were, the person was able to fulfill the needs.
Yes.
You know, even so much so that we were starting to cross-train them on F&I efforts.
Yes.
So it's kind of a super salesman, but in reality, it was just providing the user the best experience possible out of a one-stop shop, you know. And then we look at turnover. We had some issues with that, so they spent all this time. So I would love for our industry still to head that direction.
Yeah.
I think we should head that direction.
You know, if we're going to live, you know, our generation, we're going to live 20 years longer than our parents do.
Yeah.
And if we're going to see the most, you know, autonomous cars that we can get to, and whether that's Mr. Musk's projects with Tesla or something beyond that, and we're going to see electrification, which means like all, you know, maintenance kind of goes down, all those trends, Carvanas and so on and so forth. I feel like you need to be an all points player at the dealership, because we're just going to need fewer players eventually.
Yep.
And I don't know when that is, and I'm not here to sound the death knell. But
No. I don't think we're not talking about the death of a salesperson. We're just talking about the evolution, the potential evolution of what a salesperson could look like. And I'm with you there. I definitely think there's a direction. I mean, look, I always knew that I wanted to at some point in time own my own dealership.
Yes.
Right? All right. When I told my sales manager that I was leaving a 6-figure a year income to go work as a service advisor for $45,000 a year, he lost his shit on me. You know, like because I knew what my end game was. I had to have knowledge and experience in all places of the business if I was going to get to the place where I was going to be able to own my own dealership. You know, and I don't think it's any different than it is today. You know, it's like things are going to be evolving.
Yeah.
You know, the consumer's evolving, the product's evolving. You know, and I hate to say it, but we're kind of the last to evolve.
Oh yeah.
I mean, heck, even our systems have gotten, in some cases, better and have evolved beyond us. You know?
Yeah.
Like, I have a dealership that uses Dealer Socket right now, which is an amazing product, incredibly underused, I think, by majority of almost all dealerships out there. But I mean, the amount of data and what you can do with the system is astronomical. But it's what holds it up is the end user.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think we're going to have like leapfrog. Your staff is going to leapfrog you because they're going to come in. Digital natives are going to come in knowing how to work a system and a website, and be willing to and want to almost rather talk to the computer than talk to the customers or talk to the other staff. So they're going to come in and dig and see and click report and see what kind of stuff they can figure out and find. So it'll be sort of like a natural transition, but it happens in leapfrogs. Like, you don't get 65-year-old salespeople to start entering every customer interaction into a CRM. No. I haven't seen a successful plan for that yet. You just, unfortunately, wait till they retire and then replace them with somebody half their age or a third their age.
Well, because it has to become part of the job title. That's actually what I say.
Yeah.
I get a lot of dealerships that go, well, you know, I can't actually. I have a hard time with that excuse. My salespeople don't want to do it.
Yeah.
This fucking business is this.
Yeah.
Sorry, your salespeople don't want to do what? Like, you know, but it just has to be a part of the job. The job, and that's where I find it with the job duties, job description, the responsibilities has to begin to evolve. It has to evolve in the sense of our access to technology and our access to analytics. You know, I think it should be a part of the used car manager's responsibility to be able to provide me, you know, this cost analysis report of what the real estate on my lot is doing for me, you know, or like I was saying, the one that I like to do. You know, I think everybody's just got to find kind of their own way of developing out their own unique set of analytics.
Yeah, definitely. Again, we don't know where you're at, but you could probably be better. So start looking to see.
And that goes back to that first one we were saying. You have to commit to education. Yeah.
I do think that's the big undercommitment. You know, don't send your doves to Eagle School, but at the same time, you know, everybody's starting from somewhere. And again, I got turned around out of the dealership 2 months in, and then I'm back working there 10 years later with a positive attitude and respect for the owner for making the business decision he did 10 years prior, but also now making a huge impact on the business. So again, and then the other guy that hired me was, again, someone I'd test driven a car with when I was like 16, you know. It just, don't burn any bridges in the car business because you never know what they're connected to. Like, it's a small world.
Well, Tim, I can't thank you enough for jamming with me today. I think there's just so many, you know, so as we start peeling away the pieces of the onion, there were just so many beautiful little nuggets, you know, kind of here, you know. and if I was to sum up, and you correct me if I missed anything, really making the commitment to your technology, but defining what the process is. Don't let the tech define what the process is. You define the process and let the tech support it.
Yes.
Right. And from a used car manager's perspective, really own your space and understand your analytics. And then for anybody in the industry to call yourself a professional, a part of calling yourself a professional is making the commitment to self-knowledge and continue education. And you need to be intentful with that, or you're never going to do it.
Yeah, for sure.
So, is there anything you'd like to add to that?
No, I really appreciate the opportunity to come and share these nuggets with you.
Thanks, man. That was a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun doing it.
Good.
For anybody out there that'd like to connect with you and maybe learn a little bit about what you do, what's the best way to connect with you?
On all social media, Tim Felsky. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn.
It's a full name with the last name,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. I'm the only guy. I'm the only guy with that last name, so I'm there.
Awesome. Hey, thanks, Tim. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
That was a lot
Thank
of
you.
fun.